Okay, I am out in the barn again, hopefully for the last time on the Hatsan Flash QE, now what I call quest to perfecting this entry-level PCP. This happens to be a 22 caliber. This is my second unit, as I returned the first one due to not being able to feed reliably most lead pellets, although there were a few that did work. Mostly it was lead-free pellets or copper-plated that worked fairly reliably, but these pellets right here were just horrendous in that I couldn't really get them to function basically at all unless I just really rammed them in hard, which meant that if you've looked at the pictures videos. Oh, by the way, this is either part 2B. I'm not even sure how I'm going to do that. This was probably my most discombobulated series of any videos, or even just a video alone, because this rifle has given me nothing but fits. Now, that said, I'm thinking that having stuck with it and Hatsan having supplied me with some replacement magazines, which, as you can see, look quite different. And frankly, they are different. So I'm going to cover that. And also, I had a working theory after my last video where I called these junk because I was extremely frustrated, and it was like 90 degrees with a 76-degree dew point, and I was sweaty and I was crabby and I was really unhappy after thinking that this replacement rifle, having a couple pellets feed, was a fixed up unit, but in fact the magazines screwed up again. These magazines, although they worked marginally better than my first unit, they were just very unreliable. And in the meantime, Hatsan I had contacted them and they were in the works for sending me these magazines, but it took a while because they've obviously been working. But I'm going to just take a couple minutes here and get something set up on the table and explain what my working theory was prior to getting these magazines, and then showing you what I think is going to... I haven't shot these magazines in this gun yet, so I could be blowing smoke up my skirt and everyone else's, but I'm thinking that these are going to be fixing the issue, at least I hope they will. Okay, I'm at the table here. This is my little action camera, so I have no idea. I have no monitor, so I can't see just how good or in any kind of a frame we're at, but if I can kind of try to guesstimate where the lens is at, hopefully I can get you guys a good picture of what I'm doing. But here is the new magazine compared to the old. I will try to explain what I have found. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about my working theory, and fast forward if you're bored silly, that's fine. But you probably, in my last video, you can hear me ramble on about, okay, something's either wrong with the star chamber, something's wrong with the alignment, something's wrong with the chamber of the gun, I don't know, but I kept really harping on the magazines as being the cause. What I ended up finding out through taking one apart and trying to see what was really going on, because again, I'll have to show a picture, I'll insert a picture here, the damage was happening on this inside edge. Why in the world would that be doing that, just constantly jamming up there? And I was thinking, well, what if it's not what everyone thinks? Everyone thinks when these are so tight that it's a problem. Well, let me explain that. Inside star, indexing, pellet retainer, that is actually much looser and free spinning than you'd think. This is nothing more than a cover to help close things in, stop the pellets from falling out. And also there's a tab that goes into a notch in the star thing to actually help advance it. But once you've stuck your pellets in X far and they can no longer go in and turn it shut, that's really just a part to hold those all in. And if you want to see just how much power that star has in it, or that retainer, you can see I'm already holding it at about half the pellets, maybe 3/4, You pull that out and you just watch how fast that spins. Okay, that just went through like, 6 pellets or what have you really quickly. So if we do this the way they tell us, you're supposed to go counterclockwise, and there's your first pellet, second pellet, third pellet. Now that feels all stiff, but in fact, if you impede that, pretend like you got a pellet in there, and close it up, and you pull that away, you're going to see there is no binding there. That's not the issue. A lot of folks thought that if you loosen that screw, it gets better. Actually, in my opinion, and what my findings with my 22, both of them, was it made the problem actually worse. So then I'm trying to say to myself, okay, what else could be going on wrong here? So I started to try to figure out what was actually happening, and I took it all apart, started doing some measurements, and it's due to the way you load pellets in here, and with that star retainer being so powerfully tight, I was thinking what's happening is as you're advancing the pellet in the gun, obviously this is upside down and whatever, but it doesn't make any difference. As the probe starts to push right there, due to the makeup of this magazine, you can already see it's instantly going to the side. Okay? In and of itself, you'd think that's okay, that probe should still push it straight. But then as you push this further through, that is a really big exit hole. The star retainer has a really big radius. It is really torquing to the indexing direction, and it's literally just forcing that pellet to one side. And by the time it hits the skirt, if this pellet head didn't make it into that chamber right now, she's caught right there and gouging just like you'd see in my pictures. So I repeated this time and time and time again. And then I had mentioned, I noticed that pellets that are harder, pellets that are plated, lead-free, larger, longer pellets, they didn't seem to suffer that same fate, and that's because I believe they've already made it far enough into the chamber, even though they start out going a little crooked. But once that skirt gets involved, power of that star retainer advancer, if I hold that, I mean right there I can actually feel as I'm straightening that out, but it would have to be like that in order to index. How is it, if the or bolt lever isn't advancing it like on the Bull Boss and the AT-44s, obviously this magazine has to do a lot of work, but if it's doing so much work, it's almost doing too much work. So this magazine setup, even with the aluminum body, was set up for the Barrage and the Bullmaster, which I believe are semi-automatic. And if you think about it, there's a big difference between how fast and consistently actually that the action is being worked. So if a person was as fast as a semi-auto, perhaps this isn't a problem. Also, I don't have an aluminum mag, but maybe they made you'll see that really, a thinner body here because the aluminum would be stronger naturally than plastic. So you could go thinner and make a bigger star. Oh, guess what? That's what they did with this updated magazine. And I didn't know that until I started fiddling with it yesterday, last night, and a little bit today. But in any case, that's my contention, is that the way this magazine is built, which kind of, I said junk, that was probably a strong word because I was crabby. What I really meant to say is it doesn't meet the quality requirement, meaning that it doesn't work reliably enough the way it's designed in the gun it's designed in. Obviously, some people have reported that it works fine for them. Other people haven't. I've had 2 units and 4 magazines, and it doesn't work. And I don't want to hear from anybody that you're not pushing it in far enough, or it's sitting crooked in there. While those are legitimate in the right context, that is not my situation, and maybe other people's too. I have taken all the proper measurements, center lines and all these sorts of things, and everything is lined up. So I couldn't understand why the devil it wasn't working. So it makes a whole lot more sense if the pellet's coming out of there crooked, but once that skirt goes completely sideways, well then you're screwed. So I said there wasn't enough support. All right, welcome to the new magazine, or the updated one. And right off the bat, just taking some quick measurements, the first thing I noticed was they actually put a ramp or just a little bit more material. Looks like about 15 thousandths, because a lot of folks were claiming that, you know, they weren't fitting in tight enough, and certainly the more the plastic wears, you're running into a problem with. So maybe some people were shimming or what have you, but now it looks like they've put a shim on it. And outside dimensions are otherwise unchanged. So while I haven't shot the mags, I have inserted in and out, and it really is a lot tighter. But I would imagine with time that'll loosen up. But that might create the issues where it does tend to make it more difficult to get that in, because now it's putting more pressure on here on the chamber breech, and it's now creating a little bit more, because if you see here, it's paper thin. God, I hope you guys can see this. Kind of paper thin there, where here it's a little bit thicker because they added that extra material. So if nothing else, at least it should tighten up the wobbliness, but for a while it's going to make it tough for some folks to get that in there far enough. Hopefully that won't be too big of a problem. All right, the next thing I noticed was when I turn this sideways, and this is going to be hard for you guys to see, but I've taken some pictures. I'll try to insert them in. But what I'm seeing right off the bat, yeah, there's no way you're going to see this, I don't think, but the actual thickness of the material between this into the star or into the retainer, that's actually thicker. And this is a really ugly up-round hole. I don't know what, it's like 239 one way and 257 one way and 239 the other. And the new one's even the same, but it's actually a little bit smaller of a hole. So that's kind of nice. But what I have noticed is that star retainer is actually thicker now. So there's going to be more of the pellet supported, and it looks like it's literally almost rubbing on the inside of that plastic retainer radius in there, which I don't know if you can see or not. No, you can't see it there. Is actually a wider piece compared to this black one here, the original. It's actually smaller, and there's actually a gap. So right there is a huge area under the torque of this star retainer indexer torquing one way. It's going to instantly find that opening and jam it to the side. This here now seems to have a great deal more support. The material here on the case is thinner down there. The indexing retainer star is thicker, and right to the edge there's no radius or chamfer. So that means now that that skirt is literally supported almost all the way until, you know, it gets to a point to this ob-round hole. But there it looks like you would drop off about, oh, I don't know, 20 or 30 thousandths earlier. Does that make a difference? I think yes, but I guess I'll find out. So those are the obvious, obviously other than the color, differences that I found right up front. Because these exit holes in the plastic are so round and goofy. Maybe that's just to, I don't know why that is, allow the probe to go in. Maybe it's because they figure people could have these in all different orientations because they were all loose. But anyway, these holes are extremely brown. So let's get on to my super unscientific test. So if I try to line my probe up and just try to push that through gently now, okay? Instantly it's starting to take a dive. Bam. Okay, so if I try to put that probe right in the middle, okay, and I start pushing, oh, don't hit the plastic. Okay, push that pellet through. Okay, instantly it nosedives right there. So the torque, okay, what it did was it hit that little dead space because there's no support between this plastic and the edge of that star retainer indexer. So it just instantly takes a dive right there. So already we're in trouble. Okay? Then, as I keep pushing it through gently, obviously faster might be better because you're going to ram it. You can see, okay, it is literally getting worse as I go. Now, that makes me think, why did some work, some didn't? Well, if you go really, really fast, maybe you can go straight. Maybe, I don't know, maybe. It's just sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But obviously, if you have something hard, lead-free or some of the plated ones, they're going to hit those scallops perhaps. I mean, yeah, it's just literally just driving it off to the side. So now we'll try it with these, with the new one. And I believe it'll still, dive a little bit, but maybe it won't. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so here comes my pushing it through. I hit the plastic. Okay, so there it went down a little bit, but not near. I mean, it's still straight. That's still straight in that hole, but it did go down a little bit, but I imagine it has to because it's starting to torque. But it did it after farther, if you were to measure from here, from the face of this to the edge. And if I can get my probe back in there, you'll see it's still going straighter. Okay, now it's starting to dive, but it would already be in the chamber at this point. It would already be in the chamber. So let me see if I can reverse that. So as we push it through, okay, it's still right there. The old one nosedived. And as I'm pushing, okay, now it's starting to dive, but it already should be in the chamber, in those scallops. So now it can go ahead and dive, but it didn't dive instantly into the chamber edge scallop. So yeah, at this point, even though it's still not as much, that other one did it earlier. Taken longer than I'd hoped, but again, it was just a working theory. Okay, we got the same thing going on, but so as I just try to gently push it through. Okay, right there, it's already taken its nosedive. Yeah, oh, it's really dove off fast at an angle. So already we're hitting the edge. See, this one took until it got out. So, okay, I'm going to just leave that right there. And then I'm going to get this one loaded back in. Because I think that first 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch going into that chamber is critical to whether the pellet is gonna load or not. I get my probe in the hole there. So as we push in there, look at that, it even wanted to go back into the, okay. So as you can see, right there, that's what I was trying to show you. There's a huge difference between the supported one and the not supported one. So at a point in time, it's going in a lot straighter because that star is now wider. It's hitting the plastic, so there's more support. So it really ain't going to start going out of control until it's already in the chamber, so I don't care. This one here is still just jamming it this way, which is why I think that I was having all these problems. Okay, so yeah, so I believe that the pellet is held stable longer while the probe is pushing it in, and it will not torque over as quickly as early. So let's just see if I'm right or if I'm wrong, or if they just, maybe it doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong, do they work or don't they? Anyway, I have to get set up for that, so let's give it a shot. Okay, so I'm ready to try the new 22 caliber magazines from Hatsan for the Flash QE. These were replacements they sent me, and for all intents and purposes appear to be upgraded, at least for my model. Maybe they're already shipping these with new ones, I have no idea, and I can't speak to the 177s or the 25 calibers. This is just my 22 and my issue. Hatsan had, they just don't recommend these because they consider them to be very inconsistent. So in any case, let's give these a shot and see what happens. This is going to be my first time using them, so we'll see how that goes. All right. Oh, also, one other thing I should mention is at the end of and during the shooting of the last video, I'm not sure if it shows up in there, my speaking about it, but I started having the trigger locking up and difficulty with cocking it. And of course I started to panic because this is the replacement gun and the other one didn't have that sign. But after watching some YouTube videos, reading up on it, going on some forums, I thought it was at the middle screw, or the screw that the travel and then was backed. It must have backed itself out just from firing. I never touched it. I don't like messing with triggers. I take how they are out of the box as long as they're safe. I have plenty strong hands, so I don't like to mess with them because frankly I don't know very much about it. Well, after spending 2 hours on this, I know a little bit about it now, so I'm comfortable in adjusting the trigger. So I screwed that back in. All of a sudden sear disengagement was great. It cocked nicely. I was able to decock the gun, all the things that started screwing up. So I suspect it probably came from the factory, just a little loose, and from my firing it, I don't know how many rounds I got through this, loosened up. So let's get to this. I'm going to start with the Premier hollow points, the ones that were always giving me just a little bit of trouble. And as I was saying, with that additional material on the bottom, it's a tight fit. So you have to be real careful. I imagine that'll break in over time. But for all you peeps that griped about the mags not fitting tight, let me tell you something, they fit tight now. Okay, I'm gonna have to work this back and forth a little bit. Let's give this a try, man. This has been I'm telling you, this whole idea of this entry level and not having it perfected is kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm gonna go slow because that's where a lot of the problems were. And wow, it went in. So the magazine is tight, but hopefully it's going to be just fine. So let me just start firing, and I did get that a little looser though. Okay, let's see what I can or can't do here. Okay. Okay, I saw it advance. It's a lot easier with that red indexer too to see that. Hey, look at that, second round. Oh, this is a good thing. I don't think I've ever had that happen with the Crosswind hollow point, so we're off to a really good start. And accuracy, this thing, so far I just punched obviously 10 yards, no biggie. Okay. Oh, look at that, wow, okay. So far, preliminary findings are good to go. Wow, accuracy is all in there, man. It's all in. It's there. Wow, that's exciting. And these are Craftsman, premieres. And now I'm starting to shake because I'm rambling. You know what? I thought I pulled that one, but it still looks like a nice shot. If you can see, you've probably seen my other 3 videos where I always end up, after 1 or 2 shots, being really frustrated because the pellets are jamming with the magazines. Okay. Oh. Okay, I think that means that it's empty. I've rarely gotten that far with any of these magazines to know, and there it is, empty. Okay, wow. Okay, before we go check the target, I will try to fire these Barracuda Hunter 18 point, what are these? 18.21s. Okay, make sure we're lined up. We are. Yeah, this one I've had in and out of here a couple times, even though I'd never fired. Oh wow. I never got one, I don't think, good Barracuda Hunter to even load in here. And it just loaded like it was meant for it. Wow, okay, wow, after all the whining and complaining and griping, wow, even with dogs barking and cars driving and lawnmowers going, wow, I'm really happy. This thing is working really nice. Calm down Well, I'm really happy. I'm glad I stuck it out. Oh, I think this is the last one. Yeah, this is really something else. Oh, I pulled that one right at the end. Boy, they're tight, but that, you know, a lot of people griped about the tightness. Well, you can stop griping about that. That's been at least resolved in mine. All right. Wow. Not bad at all. This one was my very last shot. Okay, so here's the Crossman Premier 5-shot group. One hole. Wow, that's, I don't even shoot that good. Looks like the Barracudas were not quite as successful out of there, but I started talking, maybe breathing a little more messed up. That's the Flyer, but that's still a pretty good group right there. What is that? You know, I mean, quarter, 3/8. But that, those Crossmen, wow, they may not recommend them, but let me tell you something, look at that. Wow. Okay, well, I'm really happy with this crazy gun. So, these old magazines, I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot more trial and error, but I mean, I just loaded these for the first time in the gun, fired. These were the 2 worst contributors. I mean, other pellets had marginal success, and if you kind of got from my other videos that the accuracy obviously has always been good on it. It looks like I figured out whatever minor trigger issue I had. Power, I think this was originally advertised at like 38 foot-pounds and, you know, 1100 some feet per second, but again, that's going to be, it's just not true. I haven't seen anybody with the real thing posting those kind of numbers, but still at, you know, 26 to 31 foot-pounds, it's, you know, it's more than I really need, so I'm real happy with it. So yeah, accuracy, now the magazines work, so if you guys were having similar issues, then you might want to contact Hatsan, but it looks like they've addressed the issue, at least the issue I had, the new magazines or the replacements or the updates or whatever you want to call them, have addressed it. As far as any plated, like there was some Barracuda powers, there was some Crossman, some plated, and any and all lead free, those have all fed through those magazines into that scallopy chamber without a problem. It's as we got into the lead pellets or not real long ones, and then I just had all kinds of problems. So I am happy to end this long 4+ part review on the Hatsan Flash QE in 22 caliber. I'm glad I stuck it out because it was a magazine issue. Perhaps it's kind of the whole design of the chamber and the magazines, I don't know. But I think it can be made into a good gun as I've experienced. But as always, thanks for watching, take care, and see you later.